Okay, welcome everyone. We're going to begin it's time to start the candidate forum for the Wheeling Township Trustees. I'm Shannon Silverman, a co-president of the League of Women Voters of Arlington Heights, Mount Prospect, Buffalo Grove area, and that includes Wheeling, Prospect Heights, and Elk Grove Village as well. So what is the League and why do we do candidate forums? If you're not familiar, the League of Women Voters was born from women defying the odds to publicly educate and advocate what was then a groundbreaking idea, expanding women's rights for educational and professional opportunity in America. Women's right to vote was one part of that. So education, voting rights, and voter turnout is really the heart of our mission as your local league. We are in our 70th year. We've been here for 70 years serving our area. Candidate forums and other engagements for the public to hear directly from candidates is an opportunity for an inclusive, nonpartisan way that we are gratified to bring to our area. Vote for who you want. We are here to make that easier for you. Before today, all 8 candidates on the ballot for Wheeling Township Trustees received invitations by mail, email, or personal delivery to participate today on the same ground rules, ask the same questions submitted by you, the audience, with the same amount of time to answer. Candidates Jeanne Hamilton, Maria McCarthy, Joe Murglin, and Darrel Talken, the Republican candidates, declined to participate. The candidates you see before you all agreed to participate. Candidates, seek your vote for 4 open spots as trustees on the Wheeling Township Board. We hope you find the next hour helpful to make your plan and go vote. Our partner today, the Arlington Heights Memorial Library, is a gem in our community. I've said it once, I'll say it again. They work really hard to bring exceptional resources to our area, including providing a public civic program like the one today. Let's pause and give a round of applause to our fabulous library employees and volunteers. Thank you so much. So there are a few preliminaries to touch on before I turn it over to our moderator. The forum is being recorded. In a few days, everyone can click through to it on our league website, LWV-AH.org. I'll say it again, LWV-AH.org in its entirety, which will click you through. You'll see a click through to our YouTube, which is where it will be posted, publicly accessible for everyone. Please share the link. Please submit your written questions today. Good, thoughtful questions from you make a good candidate forum. Please just raise your hand and an usher will bring you an index card to write it on, and you can just hand it back to the usher. No questions will be asked from the floor. Written questions will be reviewed by league volunteers to check for redundancy, legibility, and clarity, and to make sure it's a question for township trustees. Sometimes there are multiple questions involving the same issue or idea. Our league volunteers may, in that instance, consolidate them into one question to leave time for audience questions on other issues or ideas. Now, everyone does have views that are not the same as the next person, mine or yours. Out of respect for the candidates and your fellow audience who also took their time to be here today, we ask that you hold your applause until the very end of the forum and not interrupt or demonstrate support or opposition of a candidate. Now, would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'll now hand you over to our moderator for today's forum, Barb Lamans, who is a trained moderator and member in the Wheaton League of Women Voters. Barb, thank you so much.
Thank you, Shannon. As Shannon said, I'm a member of the Wheaton League of Women Voters and live in West Chicago, so I will not be able to vote for any of the candidates participating in today's forum. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that neither supports nor opposes candidates or parties for any office. Providing forums is a major mission of the League of Women Voters, so candidates can become better informed about, citizens can become better informed about the issues facing their community and to become better acquainted with the candidates running for office. The format today is a candidate forum, not a debate. Candidates are expected to accurately represent the facts, and their responses reflect their own views and opinions. We do hope the candidates will speak to their goals and plans and refrain from speaking about another candidate or about what another candidate has done or not done. The candidates will begin in alphabetical order with their 1.5-minute opening statement. They will then alternate the order in which they answer questions for 1 minute. After the question portion of the forum, each candidate will give a 1-minute closing statement. Members of the leagues will act as timers. Candidates, they are seated in front of you, and they will hold up a 30-second warning and then a stop. Should a candidate exceed the time limit, I will ask them to finish their sentence and move on to the next candidate. To our audience, I would ask those here in attendance to please turn off your cell phones and other electronic devices. I would also ask that you be respectful and refrain from applauding or in other ways demonstrating support or opposition to a candidate. And finally, to the candidates, I would like to say on behalf of everyone here how appreciative we are that you are not only willing to run for office, but you agreed to be here today. So let us get started. Candidate Geier, you have 1.5 minutes for your opening statement.
Good morning. I'd like to thank the League for giving me the opportunity to communicate with the village. I have lived in the Wheeling Township for 32 years. I am currently retired from an extensive history in social services as a substance abuse and mental health counselor. I have also worked with seniors, and I'm currently involved in a housing task force of works which advocates affordable housing. I have been a supervisor in programs, and so I've seen in different agencies how things can best be done as far as delivering services. Now, in the uncertain world we live in, there's a lot of questions and people are feeling very secure and often scared. It's important to understand that the township is not primarily funded by federal funds at all. So they should be able to do their work, and we hope they will assess their future. I believe I can provide insights and skills to help the Wheeling Township Board and Mental Health Board to develop and expand those services in a fiscally responsible, accountable, and community-engaged approach with empathy and respect as values. And I ask for your vote, and I ask you to vote for my great comrades.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Candidate Grainawi, you have 1.5 minutes for your opening statement.
My name is Lorri Grainawi. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and all of you for being here today to find out more about us. I never thought that I would run for office, but here I am. I am fortunate enough to have 3 children. My youngest son, Adam, developed schizophrenia when he was 19. It changed his life and it changed mine. Adam died when he was 24. Schizophrenia didn't kill him, but it put him in the time and place that did. And when he died, all I could think about was, what can I do to change the system? What can I do to prevent another family from going through this? So I retired from my full-time paid job to do full-time unpaid work in the area of mental health and housing. Together with others, we worked to create a community mental health board, and we were thrilled when it was voted into existence in November of 2022. However, we quickly realized that the township supervisor was not going to support it in truly critical ways. I promise you that when I am elected to office, not only will we have a strong township board, but we will have a strong mental health board. Because who here doesn't know someone or their family who's been affected by mental illness, substance use disorder, or developmental and intellectual disabilities? When I am elected to office, I will listen to residents, I will go out into the communities, and I will ask, what's important to you? What can we do better? Thank you.
Candidate Mejdrich.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out this afternoon into the league for these excellent forums. My name is Austin Mejdrich. I'm running for Wheeling Township Trustee because I believe that it is finally time that our township lives up to its motto of neighbors helping neighbors. I've worked professionally in state government for over 6 years now, and that means I have a pretty decent idea of what good governance looks like, and unfortunately, the negative impacts that can happen when we are not seeing good governance. We need genuine fiscal responsibility here in our township, not tucking our taxpayer dollars underneath the mattress with no plan on how to actually address services. We've seen, especially post-COVID, but also from township-funded needs assessments, that there are real and genuine needs here in Wheeling Township that the township is uniquely primed to address and do. Township government, a lot of folks don't know actually, and we have been encountering that when we've been at the doors, essentially operates like a social service agency currently. We know our seniors have needs that are not being met. We know that the food pantry has massive demand that is not being met, and we're going to hear about some of those other things here today. So I am running to once again have our Wheeling Township live up to its motto of genuinely neighbors helping neighbors. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Candidate Williams, your 1.5-minute opening statement.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and to the Arlington Heights Memorial Library for hosting this forum this afternoon, and thank you to all of you for attending. My name is Sheri Williams, and I am running for Wheeling Township Board Trustee. I've lived in the Wheeling Township area since 1998, first in Arlington Heights and currently in Buffalo Grove. As of last month, I've been a citizen of this country for 53 years. I was born in Vietnam, and my father is Japanese, and my mom was Polish. We call ourselves the Heinz 57 family. As we look around in our community, we see so much diversity, and we need to celebrate all of that. This is part of who Wheeling Township is. What we want to do and what is the responsibility of this township is to be the safety net of everyone that lives in this community, regardless of background, who they are, or where they come from, to be a safe space for them, for their physical and mental health care needs. So I am running this April 1st election so that I can help bring progress to Wheeling Township, and we ask for your vote on April 1st. Thank you.
Thank you. Our first question is, what is your biggest concern about the township, and how will you address that concern? And we'll begin our answers with Candidate Grainawi.
My biggest concern about the township right now is the lack of transparency. I really feel that the township meetings should be online, where everybody can view them and access them, particularly those with disabilities or for whatever reason you can't get out. It's been very difficult to find out exactly what the budgets are. Not all that information is given. Communications aren't as clear as they could be. One of the top needs that was identified in the needs assessment was for communication. And the township can do a lot more in that regard. There should be written materials in various languages and the top languages that are available, not just at the township, but in places where people go, to make it accessible to everybody to find out what services are available and how can they access those. Thank you.
Candidate Mejdrich?
I think for me, the most pressing issue at the township is accessibility currently. As I mentioned, there's massive demand for the food pantry that is not being met. And one of the clearest ways that we could meet those demands are by making sure the food pantry hours are more accessible than just 2 days a week during the middle of the day. For a lot of folks who need that food pantry, they're working during the day and do not have the ability to go and take care of those, to get those services that they need. When I look at the township as it currently operates, what I see is a township that is operating like we're 20 years in the past and not operating like we are in 2025. If elected to the board, myself and my teammates up here very much want to take a look at how we can modernize services and truly address the needs that we know are being met now, not from 2 decades ago, for example.
Thank you. Candidate Williams, the same question. You have 1 minute for your response.
Thank you for that question. I think for me, the biggest concern is trust. And what we're seeing is a lack of trust with this current board, because at the last board meeting, a lot of the issues that our team has been campaigning on are now being brought to the table and being acted on. So these are issues that have been pressing for many years, and it's daunting to see that all of a sudden these are being taken action on. And so without having the knowledge that this current board is going to have the support of what it needs to do for our residents, it's very scary to know what they're going to do with moving forward, and especially with not fully funding the mental health referendum that voters passed on and ignoring the will of the citizens.
Thank you. And Candidate Geier.
My question about the current board is vision. This board has been in power for 15 years. They are more concerned with saving money and doing things the same way they have done all that time. The only things they have changed in the recent past is stuff that we have advocated and pushed for. And also, if you're looking to serve people, they are looking at a very narrow field of vision and not imagining what needs to be done or how can it be done. I advocate opening a field of vision where we are open to the community and making changes that are going to make a difference for people.
Thank you. Candidate Mejdrich, we'll begin with you for this question. You've all kind of touched on it, but the question specifically asks, how will you work for transparency in township board decision-making and accountability to the community?
It's a great question. Thank you. Starting absolutely with things like live streaming our meetings so that they are fully accessible to the public. But beyond that, if you go to any other local government around here, the village of Arlington Heights, for example, because that's where we're sitting right now, you'll find that ahead of their meetings, they will publish an entire packet with information on not only what's on the agenda, but what are the supporting materials, what are the points up for discussion for that agenda, so that citizens are fully aware of what's being discussed. That's currently not happening at the township board. So that would be something I would absolutely be pushing for. The current board, whenever you go and ask them questions, for example, will not give you a response and very rarely follows up afterwards. There's no real engagement with constituents. On top of that, I think we should absolutely have town halls around the township. And mileage-wise, it's not that big, but there are over 150,000 residents here in our township that have very unique needs. And so I think the transparency piece is making sure that we are engaging with everyone.
Thank you. Candidate Williams, your thoughts?
Thank you for that question. Along those lines, I feel that reaching out to the community and getting their input has been very disregarded. And part of being an elected official is listening to your constituents. So as my partner here, Austin, said, is that getting the input of what these residents want and meeting them where they're at, seeing what needs to be done and how we can help them for the situations that they're in. Going to town hall, offering town halls and in-office hours, as well as giving more detailed information on the website and in the monthly newsletters. I think that for people who have transportation transportation issues, who can't come to the monthly meetings. More information that we can provide to people is going to be a win overall. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Geier?
Yes, I feel that to increase this, the board has to be willing to listen. We have had people from the community tell about real problems that they're experiencing and not getting any assistance and the board has pretty much a brick wall. But I think also that you have to indicate as a board member that you are interested and that you don't have all the answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Grainawi?
So in my work with for NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, one of the programs that I do is an outreach to the community. We teach a program called Ending the Silence. And what's been brought up to us is it's great to offer these programs, but some of the people that need them aren't able to come to schools at night. They're not able to come to the places where we're giving these presentations. So it's been suggested that we give these presentations where people are going to be. And one of the things I've seen our state reps do really successfully is use the libraries. So we could have open office hours at the library where everybody comes. And if that's not a place where the entire community is coming, then we should also look at other places. By listening to the residents and finding out where and how they're getting their information, that'll best serve us as to how to make transparency, how to get that communication from our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Williams, the next question is this. What are your thoughts on the need for diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in the township?
That's a great question. As I mentioned in my opening statement, there is a lot of diversity in Wheeling Township, and it needs to be recognized and celebrated and not ignored. And the letters DEI have become such derogatory letters. And what I think of is with DEI is recognizing people's talents and what they bring to the table, not something that amplifies them higher than other people. So it's based on leveling the playing field. And when we allow our neighbors to grow, we all grow as a community. When we're not giving people the opportunities that they can bring opportunities to the table for themselves, it's not allowing our community to see what's possible within our own residents. So just being able to give them the voice and the space. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Geier, what are your thoughts on the need for diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives in the township?
Excuse me. I think that those three letters, again, have become terribly misused and misunderstood. We need to recognize people for who they are, men, women, people with disabilities. And the current situation is people are giving the impression that the only people that matter are those who have had power for so long. So I think we're going to need to fight for that, but it's something that our country cannot lose. Thank you.
Candidate Grainawi.
The purpose of a township is really to be the safety net for everybody. And when you look at the statistics of who lives in our township, it's very diverse. There's people here from all different countries speaking many different languages. I work with the disability community and trying to find housing for those with disabilities. So there's many areas in which these people that live here need to be represented. Because if you have a disability or you're from a different country and you speak a different language, you still want to have a voice in our community. And I think it's important that we recognize that and give everyone that voice. Thank you.
And Candidate Mejdrich.
Thank you. DEI policies and supporting diversity in general are really important to me for two reasons. First, personal, running as an openly LGBTQ candidate, and I'm very proud to say that I was recently endorsed by the National LGBTQ Plus Victory Fund. But on a practical level, also, I think it's important, not only do I agree with everything that my teammates here have said, but it's important to talk about what tangibly DEI policies look like. As Lorri just mentioned, we have people from all over the world who live in Wheeling Township, which means we have languages that are primary languages from all over the world. Currently, if you are a Spanish speaker or a Russian speaker, for example, and you need access to services, you can't find those on the website in your native tongue. That should change. There are also other programs that we can have, like mental health, supporting mental health services is an aspect of that. When people get the mental health or the substance use disorder treatment that they need, it helps them live the genuine, productive lives that they want to live and makes our communities better for it. So DEI policies are very real and critical for our township.
Thank you. The next question is this. What do you foresee as social services needs in the next year? And how will Wheeling Township meet them? I'll do it one more time. What do you foresee as social service needs in the next year? And how will Wheeling Township meet them? Candidate Geier, we'll start with you.
I feel that something I've been involved with is that there is a need for housing. We just attended a seminar here about housing costs and what housing costs here and how very few people can actually afford it. So as a member of the Housing Task Force, we have advocated for affordable housing, and we just got a 25-unit apartment approved after 13 hearings, and so a person needs a place to live before they can have a stable life. Thank you.
Candidate Grainawi?
Having been at the township meetings, I've heard of many needs that have been addressed. People have come and told their personal stories about need, some about mental health, not being able to get the services in a timely fashion, some for substance use disorder, again, not being able to get the service when they needed it, or just not being available. Other things, though, that we hear about are the needs for seniors. So seniors, of course, are concerned about taxes, as all of us are. But even more than the amount of money that they might pay for taxes, seniors need help with so many different things. They need help finding maintenance services for their homes from people that they trust at a price that they can afford. They need the Meals on Wheels program even more. People need more access to the food pantry, but there's so many different services, and I'm concerned about seniors specifically because my parents are in their 80s, and I think about the kind of things that they need to be able to stay in their home. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Mejdrich?
Could you repeat the question one more time?
What do you foresee as social service needs in the next year? And how will Wheeling Township meet them?
Thank you. Yeah, I think one of the most pressing issues, unfortunately, we are going to see is rising concerns over affordability of things. And that means that when people have less money in their pockets, whether it's because of the economy or other things, unfortunately, out of our control, that means that help is needed for folks to be able to meet their needs. And the township is set up to assist with that. So things like making sure there is accessible ways to get emergency funds. The township currently has an emergency fund that is very hard to access and there to make sure, for example, that someone doesn't miss 1 month's rent and can lead a stable life. You know, the township right now currently has over 135% of their yearly operating expenditures in reserves. That's to the tune of over $1 million plus extra. I think it's time that we actually use those funds to stand up the township in ways that it can meet the accessibility and the social service needs we're going to see.
Thank you. Candidate Williams?
I think as human beings, Our basic needs are these: food, shelter, and safety. And we should be able to find that in our community. Our current food pantry has hours that only operate 3 days a week from 9 to 12 and 1 to 4. People need appointments. There are days where there is an emergency where they can get food, but there's no evening and weekend hours. So for people to have to take off of work to feed their families doesn't really make any sense because we're not allowing them to thrive. Furthermore, we need to make sure that everyone is safe. And so with all the issues since COVID, we know that mental health is a big factor. Funding this completely with the referendum that we voted on and passed in '22 is so critical. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Grainawi, some of you have already touched on this subject, but what are your specific ideas on serving senior citizens who are dealing with challenges such as finances, transportation, and mental health?
Thank you. So let's talk about transportation first. There is a senior and disability bus. It's great. People have wonderful things to say about it, but the service hours are limited. And furthermore, the biggest problem is trying to go across township lines. Wheeling Township stops at Central Road. And so if you need to go past that, you can't take the bus. There's just no other option. If you have a medical appointment, you can make an appointment through the PACE bus, or you can do the township bus. It costs more. It can take up to a month to get an appointment. So there's a real need for increased transportation. Thank you.
Candidate Mejdrich?
Thank you. I want to echo some of what Lorri said. I mean, I think unfortunately, we've heard from many other local governments and other agencies who are trying to get at, for example, better senior transportation services, and have noted Wheeling Township's absence and their absence in those discussions to not bring more of those services that are needed, not enter into partnerships to make sure that if you have a doctor's office, a doctor's appointment across state lines, for example, that you can go to that doctor using transportation services. I would also note that we know that caregivers are a very big part of folks' families' lives, and especially sometimes the children taking care of their senior parents, and they need some assistance as well, even if it's just a little respite from the very critical work that they are doing. I want very much to look at a holistic approach, wraparounds of all of the needs of our seniors and folks in their lives as well.
Candidate Williams?
Can you please repeat the question?
Sure. What are your specific ideas on serving senior citizens who are dealing with challenges such as finances, transportation, and mental health?
I think part of the issue is just not having the information available to seniors to know that there's transportation opportunities available within our township. When I was canvassing yesterday, a voter told me that she was able to use the bus transportation, and she only heard of it word of mouth. And it makes me think of all the other people who aren't aware of it, as well as their caregivers or their adult children. And so if you don't know about what's available to you, then you're paying all this money out of pocket and trying to find ways to get to your appointments or to go to a friend's house or to go to the grocery store. And so I think just communicating that information is such a big part of what we could do for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Geier?
Yes, in fact, the treasurer of the township has some very good programs to help seniors. Many seniors are afraid of losing their house if they can't pay their taxes. I don't know how many of you are aware of this thing called the senior freeze that a person can apply for, which freezes their tax rate and helps them to then use their money for their own needs. I can testify in my life that I'm on a senior freeze, and if it were not for that, it would be hard for me to afford to live in Arlington Heights. But I think many seniors don't know about this. Also, the senior committee over at the senior center will be able to provide that information. So I think it's important that seniors know about this and gives them a chance to have a little bit more economic security. Thank you.
Thank you. We've had multiple questions about the next topic, and so Candidate Mejdrich, we'll start with you. Voters have approved the 708 board. What are your thoughts on implementing the board?
We need to implement the board. The voters in 2022 said by a very solid margin that they are willing to raise property taxes, usually to the tune of about $30 on average, to specifically fund mental health services, services for substance use disorder treatment, and services for folks with developmental and intellectual disabilities. Unfortunately, while we sit here today, that board is not fully funded and is not fully spun up. And I believe it is horrible that we are sitting in this position currently. We need to fully fund the board and beyond that also have mental health experts on the board. Currently, there are very few individuals on the board who actually have practical professional experience in this field. And if we are going to do the will of the voters, and our intention is to finally do the will of the voters, I believe we need to do it correctly and we need to do it as soon as we are elected into office.
Candidate Williams?
I agree with what Austin said wholeheartedly. As elected officials, it is the responsibility of those who are on the board to follow through with what has been voted. And when you've got people that agreed to make this mental health referendum a priority, and it's not, even though the General Assembly in Illinois has said it is okay to go and put this through, and it still hasn't been done after a needs assessment and undermining the amount of money that is being put through. It ignores the will of the voters and it ignores the needs of what people deserve to have with the mental health that is warranted in this community. And so what we're hoping to do is to follow through on that referendum and fund that fully. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Geier, voters have approved the 708 board. What are your thoughts on implementing the board?
Yes. Myself and Lorri were among the group who walked in the streets and got those referendums signed, and we were shocked when the board has acted this way. It's just unfair, and that is the reason that a lot of us are here today, because it's radically unfair, and the board, again, it looks like that narrow field of vision and trying to hold on power that they've held for 15 years and not really seeing the needs of the people. Thank you.
Candidate Grainawi?
We absolutely need to get the mental health board going in the way that it's supposed to be going. The mental health board, along with having qualified people on there, which would be a big start, and the people on there are well-intentioned, but there were much more qualified people that could have been chosen and they weren't. The mental health board needs to work collaboratively with all interested parties in our community. There are many agencies out there that would like to work with the board. There's over 100 mental health boards across the state. We're not reinventing the wheel. This has been done a lot of times by a lot of people. We can look to see what other mental health boards have done well, what they've been able to do efficiently. It's not all about the cost. We said it would be about $30 a year. I think we could do it for a lot less than that. What we need to do is to come together as a community, work together, and make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, Candidate Williams, is this. What alternatives other than a tax levy are available to fund the 708 boards?
Thank you for that question. As Lori mentioned, we have a lot of agencies within our township that are underutilized. And by incorporating the talent and the expertise of what's already available is really going to help so that we could bring forth the change that we need for residents for mental health. As she mentioned, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We've got untapped resources in our community that we need to be using and incorporating their voices in order to address what we can provide to our residents and meet them where they're at. And so by not looking at all the agencies that we have in our community and what money that they're already been given for through the charitable funds is underutilizing what we can provide to our residents. So by looking around at what's already in our backyard is critical so that we don't have to spend any unnecessary money. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Geier, your thoughts?
Yes, I feel that by working together with the other townships around us, and that's something the Wheeling Board has not been willing to do, we can see where we could cooperate with them in providing services that either we could share the cost of it or reciprocate doing something for them and something for us. So, but I think we need to cooperate with the other township boards and advocate for a bigger change than necessary. Thanks.
Candidate Grainawi.
So when I think about ways to fund the mental health board, one of the first ways that comes up besides taxes is grants. Many of the other mental health boards apply for grants successfully, and that helps to fund what they're doing. In order to do that, of course, they're going to need some people that know how to apply for those grants. As John said, we can work collaboratively with other townships. We can work collaboratively with the other agencies, all the other interested parties. The township itself has a charitable fund that in the last 12 years has gone from $90,000 to over $800,000. It seems to me that some of that money could be used for mental health. I know I'm on the board for NAMI. We worked really hard to raise $20,000 a couple of weeks ago. I can't imagine having that kind of money in reserves and a charitable fund and not using it for good. Thank you.
And Candidate Mejdrich.
I absolutely agree about the coordination points that my teammates have brought up, and I'm going to pick it up where Lori left off. I think in the immediate, one of the most impactful ways that we can improve mental health services in our communities is by spending down the bloated reserves that this township board has been sitting on. And when we have asked them specifically if they have a plan for no longer having 135% of their yearly operating expenses in reserves, for some context, almost every other local board around here has about 6 months worth of operating expenses in reserves. The Wheeling Township Board is well over a year's worth. And when we ask them if they have any plan for that, the answer generally is no. I think that as we are seeing increased needs across the township, whether it be mental health or others, even just very smart one-time long-term investments like improvements that we know are needed at the township office. These are smart ways we can use taxpayer funds efficiently in a fiscally responsible way and in a way that taxpayers have already told us they support.
Thank you. Candidate Geier, one of the questions that's been brought forth this afternoon is, please share how you will ensure fiscal responsibility.
Well, I think that fiscal responsibility means taking conservative action and making purchases. I hate to bring up the old board now, but at the last meeting, they said, oh, we're going to buy a bus for $875,000. Now that might be a correct thing, but all they had that number written on a piece of paper. So you would need more information to vote on something like that. They also are spending money for services now that they're only doing it because it's an election and that we have been pushing for that for 2 years. So they should be responsible.
Candidate Grainawi, please share how you will ensure fiscal responsibility.
I think one of the best things to do is to be responsive to the people. If we're spending your hard-earned money, you should have a voice in how it's being spent, and you should know how it's being spent and why. There should be discussion at the board meetings, talking about what's going to happen. There should be discussion talking about, I think the purchase price of the bus was $85,000, but there was only one bid. A lifetime ago, I used to work for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I would never have been allowed to buy anything based on one bid, and certainly not in a rushed fashion. There was no mention of this purchase at the last meeting. So to be fiscally responsible is not just to hoard the money, to save it all up, but to use it in a responsible way, getting the input of the voters on what we're doing. Thank you.
Candidate Mejdrich?
I think transparency goes hand in hand with responsibility. Exactly like what Lorri had mentioned, there is really no discussions currently about how they are planning to spend our tax dollars and about even what this money is going to fund within the township operations. By state law, township boards are required to have 3 separate public hearings at public meetings before they actually pass their levy ordinance for the next fiscal year. At all 3 of those most recent hearings for this past year, there was virtually no discussion amongst the board about the budget that they had in front of them. And similar to what I'd mentioned before about a lack of details, I have a sheet, for example, that is a page from their ordinance for this year's fiscal year. It has a lot of costs on it and no explanation whatsoever about what specifically those costs are going to. So I think actual discussion and transparency to make sure that everybody knows that the township is spending our hard-earned taxpayer dollars in a responsible way.
Candidate Williams?
Fiscal responsibility at the township level seems to be a multi-layered issue. When I attended the last board meeting, they discussed translation and interpreter services, and they purchased or going to purchase about 3 devices that were several $100s each. And one of the trustees didn't seem to know anything about it. And so not to have that communication where all of the board members are on the same page just doesn't seem like a group effort. Number 2, as we've heard, is just having the residents know what that money is being spent on. And so we know that based on previous financial reports, there's a lot of money sitting in reserve. So if you think of the money that you're contributing to your township with it just being money under the mattress and not doing anything that it gives back, it's very heartbreaking. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Grainawi, what are your expectations of the township attorney?
Oh, that's a great question. I think the role of the attorney should be to give advice when asked and to keep the township, make sure they're not doing something illegal. So the attorney's role should not be to be leading the meetings. The attorney should be there to provide only legal advice. Thank you.
Candidate Mejdrich?
It's a good question. And I think I agree with what Lorri said. I mean, the point of an attorney is to provide legal advice to the township board and to make sure that they are operating, in a legally responsible fashion. But I think a lot of the concerns, and I'm going to guess a little bit at the genesis of this question, but a lot of the concerns that we've had pop up about the current township attorney is not actually, I think, the fault of the attorney. He is attempting to do his job in the way prescribed by the township board. However, the current township board does not ask questions of the attorney. And while I have disagreed with some of his legal insight over the past, the current township board does not ask any clarifying questions, does not ask any alternative options. Instead, as Lorri said, they seem perfectly willing to let the attorney run their meetings in a lot of ways. I think that needs to change. We need good legal advice to make sure we are, operating within the parameters of the law. But we are first and foremost going to be the elected officials of the Wheeling Township residents, not our attorney.
Candidate Williams.
I echo what Austin said. And when we see the lawyer attend all these meetings, it makes you wonder how much of what taxpayers are paying to have him present at all of these meetings. And so while his advice and expertise is warranted, we need to know that what the elected officials are putting forth in the meetings and providing for the township are what the residents need and not coming from a different place from just the lawyer. We should not think of him as the man behind the curtain, but that the trustees sitting at the table are the ones that are actually doing the work and implementing what needs to be done for the community financially and every other area that needs to be addressed for the community, not just someone telling them what needs to be done. Thank you.
And Candidate Geier, your thoughts?
Yes, I feel that the role of an attorney is to advise you. You're asking the questions and you know the different options. And so you say, okay, what's the best thing to do? In the case of the current board, the attorney appears to be driving the agenda. Often the chairman will have to ask a question that obviously as a chairman they should know, but the attorney has to explain it entirely to them. So an attorney needs to help you not drive the bus.
Thank you. I think we have time for one last question, so you can take a deep breath. And the last question will begin with Candidate Mejdrich, and it's a question that will involve multi-parts, I think. The township overlaps multiple villages. What roles are distinct between the township and villages, and what roles are shared?
It's a great question. So in terms of what services are distinct, for example, almost entirely within the township, the roads are managed by the villages because there are very little amount of roads. I think it's maybe around 5 miles in unincorporated Wheeling Township, meaning that the township would be responsible for them. So that is solely distinct for the villages. Villages also obviously provide our municipal police and fire forces, for example, right? And they do an exceptional job at that. In ones that are shared, there are certainly overlaps with some social service needs, or the Village of Arlington Heights runs the Arlington Heights Senior Center that also helps seniors, just like the township is tasked with doing. Those areas, I think, are ripe for coordination to make sure that we are not reinventing the wheel, and that, in fact, as efficiently as possible, we can collaborate to meet needs in a pretty responsible way.
Thank you. Candidate Williams?
I think with the different boards that are running in the municipal election, we can see that there's various aspects of the community that are required to make both a township and a village to run effectively. For instance, we've got the village trustees, we've got the mayor, we've got the library board, we've got the school boards. And so each area has its own responsibility. And by both communicating and collaborating with these different candidates and elected officials, we can all make the community a better place so that some of it intercedes with one another. And so by not working in silos, we're going to do more together. There's some issues that the village is going to have because the township is built up from different cities. For instance, Arlington Heights, Wheeling, Mount Prospect, and Prospect Heights. So to get all their voices in together, it's going to be a more collaborative process. Thank you.
Candidate Geier.
Yes, the village boards and the other many boards that are in Arlington Heights and the other villages are to have big picture decisions about big projects and general stuff. Whereas the focus of the township and its greatness is that it is dealing with citizens in need one-to-one. So it is the closest to true democracy of all of the government agencies in our area, I believe. Thank you.
And Candidate Grainawi.
Okay, I'm going to try not to repeat what's been said. So a couple of things that the township has that are unique. The township runs the Wheeling Township Cemetery, and I bet not many people know that, and 5 miles of unincorporated roads. The social services are that, again, that the township is intended to be the safety net to help those that need it the most. That is done by the villages as well. There's certainly overlap, but that is one of the most basic missions of the township is to help those that are most in need. And as everyone has said, to be able to work collaboratively with the villages and the towns so that we're providing similar services that could be done more efficiently, that would be the goal. Thank you.
Thank you all. Now it's time for closing statements. And we'll begin with Candidate Williams. You have 1 minute for your closing statement.
Thank you again for everyone for attending and the League of Women Voters and the Arlington Heights Memorial Library for hosting this forum. We've heard a lot of different issues, questions, and answers this afternoon, and I'm hoping that it brings food for thought for all of you to think about what you want your community to look like. If you think about township, as we mentioned, as a safety net and as an extension of your own family as you walk outside the door, ask yourself, is this representing and meeting the needs of your family and yourself for your everyday life? Currently, it is not. It is not meeting the needs of all the residents, and we need to change that. We hope that you will vote for us on April 1st to move progress from Wheeling forward so that all residents can be seen. Thank you.
Candidate Geier, your 1 minute closing statement.
Yes, thanks you for listening. I would like to talk about our team. We are operating out of passion. We are operating out of fairness. And that's what drives. And I hope that you give us a chance to try and change the picture of the township so that we can all be proud of what it does for our regular people in the village. Thank you.
Candidate Grainawi.
Thank you. I want to thank all of you for sharing your time with us today. We really appreciate it. What I value most in an elected official is honesty and integrity. I want someone who's going to listen to me and respect my opinion, even if it's different from their own. My team and I will embody those values. We bring diverse experiences to the table. And because of that, we're going to be well equipped to deal with whatever our community faces. My background is engineering, John's is social services, but what we all have in common is a desire to give back. We're here because we care about our community. On April 1st, I hope you vote for our team and together we will make progress for Wheeling Township. Thank you.
And Candidate Mejdrich, your 1-minute closing statement.
Thank you, and thanks again to everybody for being here and for those questions. There were some really fantastic questions and appreciate the opportunity to address them. Yeah, I do want to echo what the rest of my team has said about our values coming into this are about compassion, about neighbors, helping neighbors, about bringing responsibility and transparency to our government. And actually, I have a bit of a goal, a vision. I'm very excited that after April 1st, when knock on wood, we win our election, that we are going to be able to walk into township board meetings that are vibrant, that there is discussion, that there are, understandably, there will be disagreements and work through those in a respectful way. We really need, I believe, a wholesale new vision for this township that can meet the needs of its residents in a respectful, in a compassionate, and in an efficient way. So we do hope that on April 1st, you will vote for our team, including Maria Zeller Brauer, our supervisor candidate also, and hope to genuinely get to work for all of you here in Wheeling Township. Thank you.
Thank you. And please join me in thanking the candidates for being here today. And we, along with them, hope that everyone will encourage your family and friends to go out and vote and to become educated as to the issues. And now I'm going to turn the microphone over to Shannon.
Okay, one more round of applause for our moderator, please. She's also a volunteer. Just a couple closing remarks and plugs. You'll see over there the hot pink signs. League of Women Voters of Illinois, the Education Fund, sponsors IllinoisVoterGuide.org. It is a fabulous one-stop resource. There are QR codes on the signs. You can also look up IllinoisVoterGuide.org. It has a website. It has not been fully loaded up yet with this election information, but it soon will be. Please check it out and check back often as it gets updated with candidate-specific information and other essential information to make your plan to go vote. It is not, the information is directly from the candidates. So please be informed, go vote, make an impact locally. Thank you very much. Have a great week.